Everybody, welcome back. We're doing another Marvel Future Revolution video. In this one, we're going to be looking at a Black Widow build PvP. So this is a generic PvP situation. I am going to talk about all different skills that you could potentially use, as well as some specializations, companions, gear, etc. Because there are a couple different paths that you could take. So we'll talk that high level. Again, I want to give a shout out to Mambo, who I talked to a little bit about some of this Black Widow stuff. One of the better Black Widows out there. If you got any questions, comments, etc., please let us know in the comments section below, or in the description below. There's a Discord link. You can come chat, etc. We're going to show you an infographic and go through it in detail. So let's check it out.
Bring me WolverThor!
All right, so here's the quick view of the graphic. There's a lot going on here, so I'm gonna have to walk through this. The reason being is that PvP, specifically for Black Widow, is you jump around between Omega War and Dimension Duel. You might use different things, and not just that, but there's some other abilities that you might use in each game mode as well. So while this is very busy, and normally I don't like to have things this busy, I was like, you know what? I just want to have as much on here as I can so that someone can just look at it real quick. If we're going to do some maybe deep dives into some specific paths, might do that again in the future. But anyway, if you want it, check that out. And now let's get to the specifics. All right, skills first. So the way this one starts, and actually I should say this before I get into the video. When you see this 6A, 6B, 5B, 3B, what does all that mean? So the way the skills are set up, I'm looking at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A, B, C, D. That's it. That's simple. So in this one, this skill that I've got set up right now is my Omega War setup, and that's where you see the initial graphic. Those are the same, or that's the skill setup you see there. It's pretty similar to Dimension Duel. We'll talk about the couple differences when we jump there. So first ability up, our 6D is Quick Step Strike. This is an untargetable. You can take damage in this, contrary to some popular belief. It does hit pretty hard, 966. Though I will say, if somebody's not within a certain range, or if there's an obstruction, a pillar, etc., you might not go around that. So there's a lot of times where I'll just do this once, as opposed to, you know, 4 times, and then it just stops. It's not like Iron Man Spin Blade where it'll keep going a little bit. It'll go, and if someone's nearby, it'll go again. Otherwise, forget about it. All right, next up, we've got our flare gun. This is a blind. I like this quite a bit. You could also use this in Dimension Duel. You'll see that we don't have that in both, but I'll focus that Dimension Duel stuff a little bit separate. I like this. It's a little bit longer cooldown, but it's not too long. It's a reasonable stam on it. Again, you blind somebody for 3 seconds, they could have wasted an ability. That could be huge. I really like that ability. Next up is we've got a espionage device. And actually, just so you guys understand the abilities we're using here. Close quarters combat was the first one. Second one was espionage. Third was espionage. And this is your trap deluge. This is a must-have skill for Omega War. Absolutely. And because of this skill, this is the reason you're seeing multiple sets of gear on the graphic. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but it's mainly because of this set and the AoE damage this thing can do, because it can be massive. It also decreases attack by 25% on top of hitting everybody for 430%, though I feel like it hits so much harder than that. We've got an option here for Dimension Duel that we'll jump to in a second. All right, so the other ability here in the 4 slot, which is your 7B. This is double shot. This ability got nerfed because Widows always get nerfed. One of the things I don't like about this ability, you can see she sort of steps back. Sometimes it takes you out of a range of an opponent, which stinks. I mean, people are moving around so much in PvP, so you got to be careful when you use the ability. When it does hit, it hits hard. The cooldown in it is very reasonable. The next one up, I have Frag Bullet on this. Sometimes people will use Snipe. I like Frag Bullet because it tracks. It also it ties to the Rise of the East set gear, or Midgardia type gears sets if you're looking at them. I like the Frag Bullet because it does track. Like if you're near someone, it doesn't matter how far they run away, it does still track them. There is an option for them to dodge out of it, but I like this better than potentially Snipe, which hits way harder but it takes a little bit to load it up. People can sometimes run away from it if you're out of range, which again, Netmarble fixed this. It's insane that a snipe could ever miss, ever. I'm fine with dodging and all that, but like the range of snipe should be endless. Once you're in range to actually pull it off, should land. So that's the abilities setup that I have for an Omega War. I want to show you guys the difference between Omega War and Dimension Duel. One of the first ones is Exploit Weakness. This doesn't hit very hard, but it's untargetable. You can't be hit during this, or can't be targeted rather. And the cooldown is insane short. So I like using this to kind of get through people and throwing them off a little bit. Still keep the blind. In the 3 spot is the Sticky Bomb. So this gives a shock damage and a debuff for a decreasing attack by 25% for 6 seconds. The cooldown on this is pretty short. It's important to try to land this so before you do some of your bigger abilities, because of some of the specializations you might use. But this is a staple for Dimension Duel. And then I've got the same abilities in the last 2 spots. Again, you can switch them up a little bit. In Dimension Duel, you could consider using Concentrated Fire, which is the 7D. But just remember, if you're gonna do this, it's pretty easy to get out of the way. But if you get hit by this, it could be game over. Very similar to a snipe if you get hit by it. But this one I don't personally use, but some people do like it. You just got to understand when to use it. So those are all the different skills. Again, you could go a lot of different routes with this. I know that it's very busy up there for that, but I felt it was important to cover a lot of those. I used to think about potentially trying to do a guard break build with some of these close quarter things. I've not dove into that. Maybe at some point, if they give us the ability to move things around a lot more and build things up and gear sets, etc., I'll look at it. But now let's jump to specializations. Okay, so for the first ones I got set up here, Subdue. We use this in a lot of different specs. You could, in theory, use this on every single game mode because of the status effect comment that I made earlier with Sticky Bomb. So you've got Deluge, which you could put on people in Omega War. You've got the, what else did we have on that? I think that might have been it, actually. I guess the flare gun, technically. But on top of that, any other status effects that your war mates have with them, or that they put on somebody, you're doing 30% additional damage. We're going to talk about whether we switch this one out for something else in Dimension Duel, but this one I definitely use in Omega War all the time. Single target. You don't necessarily have to use this in Omega War if you want to switch it out for something else. I definitely think it's a use for Dimension Duel, but anytime I'm one-on-one with somebody, I still like this and I still keep it. I don't know. It's up to you. If you can prove something to me damage-wise, I'd love to hear it. But I know that I get on a lot of one-on-ones in Omega Wars too. I like this orange ability a little bit for decreasing damage. Gives me a little bit more survivability. This is one you could consider dropping, as well as this single target one. If you don't, if you want to maybe use something else over, I guess maybe if you want to bring in the 50% HP. But this is one that you can consider dropping. I wouldn't consider dropping this in Omega War. I think it's sort of a staple there. Just there's just so much damage. And then this one, which we also use in PvE, is the remaining cooldown of all skills anytime you use an espionage device. Again, there are a lot of espionage devices we were talking about with the flare gun, the deluge, sticky bomb. You're always going to be looking at something here, so you're going to bring down your abilities. Now, some other options here. Now, I switch these a little bit when I go to Dimension Duel. So one of them I always will use in Dimension Duels is Disguise Tactics. Anytime you get, anytime you're about to die or sustain fatal damage, you vanish for basically 4 seconds and recover 30% of your max HP. So this is people hate facing widows with this in Dimension Duel, even though it's not that game changing. It can bring you back. I will say I really like this. Anybody who faces widows and get lose by this, they absolutely can't stand it. Again, this single target, to me in Dimension Duel, I think it's a no-brainer. I currently have this damage reduction one we already talked about. Mom and I were talking about that. You could drop that one, or even the green one, again, to go back to this Subdue one, which is the 30% status effect. That's up to you. Depends if you want to be a glass cannon situation or something less. And then you could also consider using the damage dealt to targets with less than 50% HP. It's an additional 25%. So it's a glass cannon thing. Or you could lean back into the one we talked about earlier, which is this cooldown. You've got a lot of options here, and that's why I've got all of those up there. It looks busy, but that's what you want to use. The one thing I will say is do not use the purple one on a Mega War. Absolutely not. It's got a, what is it? 5-minute cooldown? Yeah. So it's like you don't want to use that in a Mega War because you're not going to even really use it at all in there. You'll die once, and it's kind of like, okay, now what do I do? So, or I'm sorry, that's a 10-minute cooldown, isn't it? Just don't use it. Just don't use it. The other ones are all super solid. Highly consider using that. So now let's jump back over to, we'll jump to companions. This again will vary. You can see in the graphic up there, I've got America Chavez, I've got Gilgamesh, I've got Hulk, and I've got K Bishop. I like America Chavez mainly for duels for sure. You could use Hulk just because he's annoying, and if people don't have America Chavez, it's really annoying. So he's still an option. I like Gilgamesh in a Mega War. If you can land him because of all the chaos going on and you can get a mass stun, or maybe somebody's fighting and you're off to the side and you can, they're busy and not running around, you throw a Gilgamesh on them, they get stunned. It can be a game changer. You want to use that in that manner. Kate Bishop is just a very, very popular Dimension Duel character, even a Mega War character where you can drop her and she's shooting people and she can hit them from anywhere on the map and you're not anywhere nearby. So she is a great option. There are certainly other options you could use. I think, Daredevil, I suppose Moon Knight, but I just really wish he would have been a little bit better. He just wasn't. If you, Ghost Rider, if you had a bunch of flame damage yeah, but you've only got that one burn. I didn't like that because it was just too much to get landing. I think that's pretty much the best that I think. I know Loki has some confusion and stun. Maybe Jane Foster is one that's coming up, I will say. You might want to consider bringing her into a Mega War. I didn't put her on the graphic yet because I haven't personally tested her. I've been hearing some great things. If any time in the future, and that's part of the reason why you watch the videos, I suppose, is that you might want to consider using her in a Mega War because of that chain damage. So that's what I got companion-wise. Now I want to jump to the gear sets, and you'll see that I've got a number of gear sets in there, and I'll explain why. Okay, so I've got Midgardia, Rise of the East, and you also see I have Hydra, Sakaar, and Eyes of Osiris. There's two different builds that you could do there. So Midgardia and Rise of the East, I like to put on top because really they work in PvE and work in PvP. Eyes of Osiris, Hydra, and Sakaar, the espionage damage from those isn't as good in PvE, so it's really kind of an exclusive build that you would be looking to just use in maybe an Omega War, an Alliance Omega War. If you're really one of those type of players who wants to refine and do the best you can in every game mode, but understand that fodder is really hard to come by, then you might want to consider doing Eye of Osiris or Hydra and Sakaar for those war type scenarios, because what those do, I'm going to jump over to a spreadsheet that I have that shows gear tiers. I've got my gear tier. So Eye of Osiris does a trap expert and espionage devices, and Sakaar does espionage devices crit damage. Hydra is espionage devices attack. So depending which one of that's why they both show up on there. It depends what you want. Now she's big into crit damage, but you can sometimes, depending on your rules, have enough of that. So for that reason, you might want to consider Hydra to get the extra attack. But all of them I consider really good. I have, I guess, solid here. The reason I don't have those as really good is because it's really sort of a game, or like a certain game mode exclusive situation where I tend to not try to rank those higher, even though I think they're really good in that game mode. It's not necessarily something you're going to bring over to PvE, or maybe you don't like that as much in Dimension Duel. But in wars, holy cow, you get out there in Deluge, you're taking out a ton of people. You can wipe people out. It's a big deal. Alliance Omega War, it is a really, really big deal. So for that reason, you can see that I've got both of those, both Hydra and Sakaar on there, because it just depends what stats you might need. And then Eye of Osiris. I wanted to explain that a little bit because it might depend on the path you want to go. But for you, if you want to keep it simple, I recommend Midgardian, Rise of the East, and keep with sort of that basic build here. It also translates over to the PvE builds as well, which you can check out that video. I'll have it at the end there so you can check it. It's going to be in one of the upper little thumbs that you can check. So again, shout out to Mamba. Appreciate you chatting with me. Again, know this is busy. Hopefully it's helpful. We'll have this on the Discord. Check out the MFR resources channel. You can link to that channel and pull it over to your Discord if you want. Let me know any questions, thoughts, etc. you've got in the comments below, or come to the Discord, hammer down like buttons, notification bell, subscribe. And until next time, hope you have a wonderful day.